Everyone, I'm Sean Deveney from Heavy Sports, catching up on some of the big news in the NBA this week, certainly with the Celtics. I've got Steve Bulpett, who has been covering the Celtics for a while now, it's fair to say. How are you, Steve?
I'm from Buck Bradley's Saloon and Eatery in Milwaukee.
There you go. Well, and yes, well, everybody loves Buck Bradley's for sure. Is that the longest bar? Is that the one?
Yes, longest bar east of the Mississippi.
That's right. That's right.
See Wally, the owner. Tell him I sent you.
I will. I will be sure to do that. Well, let's obviously an interesting week, I think, in the Celtics in terms of what they've been dealing with. What did you make of the news that they are, Kevin Durant discussions? Maybe not a big surprise. Is it really that big of a news item? I mean, weren't we sort of a Kevin Durant, see what the parameters of the deal would be?
Yeah, well, again, we reported a few weeks ago that the Celtics were going to get in on that, and that was to be expected. But with what the Nets were asking, it was going to be hard for any team, certainly the Celtics, to meet that request. I'm pretty sure from everything I've heard is that this was, that the discussion hasn't been shut off, but it hasn't exactly been, hot and heavy either.
Is that sort of what's behind this coming out at this point? Is that the Nets haven't been able to get much traction on a deal here? Maybe it behooves them to put something out that at least kind of kickstarts things a little bit and let some other teams know what might be out for. Just from the Nets' point of view, why does this come out now?
Well, again, I think it's what you're saying. They, when the market gets quiet, they're trying to, water the lawn a little bit here and see if they can get something to grow. Again, I think it's going to be tough for the Nets to get anything that they're getting entirely what they're asking for. As a couple of people I talked to, and for the story that we posted last night, the key is going to be, if you're able to get Kevin Durant in a trade, what's going to be left? Because if you're getting Kevin Durant, you've got to be going for a championship. And if you trade away so much that it hurts you on the fringes and takes away your depth or takes away, key parts of your rotation, do you really come out ahead on it? And in fact, if it doesn't work out that way, if you aren't able to say, hey, we're going to win a championship with this move, then you're really kind of burying yourself for a while because, the Nets want multiple first-round draft picks as part of this deal.
Yeah, and that's the big thing is that, how many of these picks are you going to give up? And really a lot of the teams that have been involved in discussions for Kevin Durant don't have picks. If you look at Miami, they are a team that would very much like to make a move for Kevin Durant and probably would be in pretty good position to make one if they had some draft picks. But that's part of building up some of these teams is that you give away the store in terms of the draft picks, and now you're left with nothing when you need to make a move like this.
Yeah, I mean, and the draft picks are of nebulous quality anyway. If you get Kevin Durant, then you're assuming you're not going to be, a high first round. You're not going to be picking in the lottery. You're not going to be a high first round team. And the Celtics trade with the Nets back in 2013, essentially, Pierce and Garnett for a pocket full of first round draft picks. That only worked out to the extent that it did for Boston because the Nets really never got it going. And, you saw the Celtics, picking up Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, that kind of flexibility. I'm not sure why the Nets are holding out for picks in the next couple of years. If I'm Brooklyn, I'd say, yeah, I want 3 picks, but I want them to be in, down the road.
Right, kind of post Durant. You want him to be after Durant is retired. It's a good point about that 2013 trade that, and someone was mentioning this, and my response was, look, the Celtics, could have easily taken Buddy Hield and Josh Jackson. Those were 2 guys who were very much on the board and were possibilities. They could have taken those guys, and then the view of that trade shifts completely. The fact that they get Tatum and Brown, that they nail both of those picks, that obviously changes the way that trade is viewed as, they got this big haul. Well, they got the big haul because, like I said, the Nets went down pretty fast, and the other thing is that Danny Ainge made the right picks with those two selections. That doesn't always happen.
Sure, no, yeah. I mean, every year people will go through and say, I'm sure they've every city that drafted ahead of Milwaukee in the Giannis draft is saying, "Oh, you screwed up,"
Yeah. Right.
So, it's as the cliche is, it's an inexact science to begin with, and then the more you overthink it, it becomes bad science.
Yeah, and so I wonder, the Nets and their focus on picks, is that a little bit misplaced? Should they be looking at, look, you can trade Kevin Durant. It looks like they're probably going to keep Kyrie Irving. You've got Ben Simmons there. You could trade Kevin Durant and remain competitive. Certainly, if you did a deal with the Celtics for Jaylen Brown, but that doesn't seem to be as much as their focus. And I just wonder if the focus on picks is a little misplaced here.
Well, I wouldn't say there's a focus on picks necessarily. They're looking for a star and a rotation player. So they want both. In the case of a Jaylen Brown, if again, I'm not sure that's something that's, on the front burner here at all. And it could well be dead in some regards. But they want the Jaylen Brown, an all-star, and another, rotation guy, Marcus Smart's mentioned. That'd be like getting, 2 starters, one of them an all-star for Kevin Durant, and that's right there. That's a lot to ask. And I realize Kevin Durant is who he is, and in the NBA, 4 quarters don't equal $1. If you get the dollar, you win the deal, kind of. But Brooklyn's asking a lot, and I keep coming to that, but that's really where it is. And I think it's going to be hard for them to get from any one team, certainly. And as GMs have told us, it's probably going to have to be something creative if it gets done, and it involves like a 3rd team, maybe a 4th.
Yeah, it is interesting because I'm not sure how many teams are in position. One of the things that I've been saying about this all along is that if Kevin Durant really wanted to get traded, you probably couldn't have picked a worse time to let the team know that, or to put it out on Twitter, than 2 hours before free agency starts. Now nobody's got, you do it before the draft, so teams have some opportunity to configure how they're going to try to approach this, so they could actually make a real offer for Kevin Durant. But you wait 2 hours before free agency starts. You're a week after the draft. That's not a strong way to put out a trade request right there.
Yeah. Look, the Nets are kind of over a barrel here, with the Kyrie situation. They have been over a barrel with the Kyrie situation, and to a degree with Durant as well. I mean, couldn't play his first year coming off the injury, was limited last year, right? Came back later in the year.
Yeah.
So, they're like, hey, you got nailed on the deal in 2013. And I realize Sean Marks wasn't there, and ownership was different. You get nailed on that deal, and now you're trying to make up for it. And I'm not sure that is doable at this point. I mean, again, as it was the larger point of the story we posted last night, GMs are saying, hey, it's everybody wants Kevin Durant, But then you look at what do you have left, after you get him, after you give up all you need to get him, are you having to, fix those holes?
I thought one of the interesting things that one of your sources, an executive, told you was, it gets reported as if the Celtics went to the Nets and said, "Here, take Jaylen Brown and Derek White and pick," like as if this was, a firm offer made. That's not always how this goes, though, and sometimes the reporting on that can make it look, I don't want to say worse, but it can make it look, more defined than an offer might have actually been.
Yeah, and again, I don't know that to be the case in this situation, but it's I've heard it 1,000 times, and again, in this situation where GMs kind of just lament the fact that, hey, we said, teams are talking, and it's not always, hey, one team calls and says, will you give us X, Y, and Z for A, B, and C? It's usually a conversation, hey, how you doing? How's the wife? How's the kids? Good to see you. Anyone on our team that interests you? Well, if Jaylen Brown interests me, well, what kind of things would you be talking if you were to try to get Jaylen Brown? That's how these conversations start, and in this case, yeah, there's at least a focal point in that, the goal is Kevin Durant, but, you look at trying to find out if you're the Celtics, you want to know what interests the Nets, who interests them on your team, and, how can you go about crafting a deal from there?
Yeah, and obviously Jaylen Brown's been, from the Celtics standpoint, has been sort of the focal point here. You had the tweet, SMH, shaking my head, and there was the liked tweet earlier from this summer in which somebody had said he's disrespected, and he liked that, which indicates that he feels like, yeah, okay, I am a little disrespected, and then here come the trade talks. So if you're the Celtics, can you and how can you sort of reset things with Jaylen Brown, assuming he doesn't get traded, assuming you're coming back? Is this an issue that's going to kind of linger over them?
Well, first of all, the scratch my head tweet, the SMH tweet, that could mean 1,000 different, that's totally semantics there. And the people that said, oh, it means this, it means that, they don't know. I mean, unless they're talking.
Well, wait, let me push back you on that, because obviously he comes up in trade talks. He knows when he tweets something like that, if he's talking about, he ran out of milk and he's shaking his head because he ran out of milk in the morning, he knows how that's going to be interpreted.
He knows it's going to be interpreted 1,000 different ways. I think it's, it can just be like, he might have been told by the Celtics, the 2 days before, hey, there's nothing going on here. And he could be like, hey, here's this stuff being floated out there that's got no basis. Or it could mean, yes, it could mean that he's upset about it. It could mean, 5 other things as well. So, to say that it means this without knowing for certain, unless, again, you're talking to Jaylen and he says, no, I mean this, then, you don't know. And I find that kind of speculation a little weird. Let's go read minds here. SM, and based on 3 letters,
Yeah. I mean, I do think that Jaylen had to have some idea of how it was going to be interpreted. Like, he had to have some idea of if he said anything, it was going to be interpreted a certain way. But,
all a player today has to do is, subtweet something with the eyeballs.
Yes.
And it's like, you can hear the media starter, and they're off.
Yeah. Right. I think the Donovan Mitchell, who's, fairly religious, tweeted God is good the other day. and everybody assumed that meant he was getting traded or something. Maybe it just means he's religious and he thinks God is good. So that's maybe a cigar is just
God fan, you know. He saw God, Sham God, shooting hoops and said,
he said God is good. But in general, though, I mean, Jaylen Brown is a grown man, and certainly if you're mentioned in trade talks with Kevin Durant, I don't think there's any shame in that, and I don't think it'll be that hard for the Celtics if there is some bitterness there to lay it over, and to basically say, hey, look, yeah, we called and we talked, and they wanted you, nothing got done, you're here, let's go back to the finals.
Yeah, look, how the relationship is going forward is going to be largely based on how the team is doing, right? If team is playing well, I mean, start of the year and into January, things weren't going well, and guys were talking, and guys were unhappy, and guys were frustrated. And as we've pointed out here, to say that things have been perfect with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum all along is to ignore the fact that these two guys were saying in January when they went on this trip, it's like, we're talking with each other. We need to find a way to play off each other better, to help each other. We need to find ways to enhance each other. So, if things were perfect all along, there would have been no need for those conversations.
Right. When
things started turning around and they started winning games, the world changes. Guys move the ball more. All these things improve. So if the Celtics go into the year with the team they have now, essentially, and they, are winning 3 out of every 4 games, then life is going to be good. But if they come out into the year and even in, October, November, December, if they're not playing good basketball, if they've lost a couple of games to bad teams, if they've gotten waxed by a couple of good teams, then there'll be frustration. And, so it's going to be based on, not who's able to put their armor on someone and smooth things over. It's going to be based on how the team performs. That's always the best harbinger of or best indicator of happiness or not.
Yeah. Well, we'll leave it there, Steve. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you guys for checking us out. Remember, heavy.com and Heavy on Celtics for more Celtics talk. And you can check out all of our NBA coverage over at Heavy. Thank you.